I've reviewed a lot of Hall effect keyboards, but this one is pretty unique. It has this feature called RT Match 2.0. RT not as in rapid trigger, but RT as in real time. It's a hardware-driven system that dynamically adjusts itself to the user's habits. This is the A75 Ultra by Drunkdeer. I'm gonna be honest, I've seen a couple of boards from Drunkdeer. They have approached me multiple times, but they never really piqued my interest. But when they sent me the A75 Ultra, this one really stood out. So let's start with the basics first. The price, it starts at $199. Fully assembled with standard accessories you would expect. I also wanted to mention that the cable feels really nice and quality. Now for the board itself, we have an exploded 75% layout. It's not something we usually see in HE boards. For me personally, I do prefer a smaller board when it comes to gaming, so I prefer the Wooting 60HE. But I can understand those of you who still want some function keys in your HE board in case you want to do some work. Now, first impressions, this thing feels massive. The overall theme is very futuristic Mac vibes. It definitely feels like an ultra version of the A75. We have a pretty chunky base that sort of overlaps our top cover, but there is also a reason for that, which I'll talk more about it later on. Now, in terms of design features, we have a nice back design. It matches the board really well with the PVD chrome plated panels. We also have a nice little badge with some engravings on it, providing some nice contrast with the red and flows very nicely with the shape of the board. Now on to what I don't really like, the keycaps. I've never been a fan of keycaps with bigger fonts. I do prefer the usual regular font, and also not a huge fan of side prints that look a little too gamery for me. But if you also don't really like it, but you like the board in general, you could just swap them out. It's really simple. Now, something I do want to focus on is the switches. They have their own switches made in-house. These are the self-developed Tian switches. With an actuation force of 35 grams, the overall feel of these are actually pretty nice. Since we have a box stem, the stem wobble is minimal and makes the switch feel really smooth on top of it being a magnetic switch. As for how it sounds, here you go. It's alright. The sound profile isn't very wow. I've tried better HE boards that sound a lot better. The stabilizers could use a little bit more work, but I do want to say the switches by themselves are pretty good. If they sold the Tian switches by themselves, it would be an option that people would use when they upgrade their HE boards. And I do want to preface this before we continue with the video. I would not advise or recommend you opening up this board, and Drunkdeer themselves also does not recommend you open up the board. But anyway, the board had no visible screws, so I asked them how to open it and they said it's held together by plastic clips. So I tried my best, and it is a really tough plastic clip, but I managed to open it. So here's a quick look at our PCB sandwich. It looks like we have our standard set of foam and aluminum plate, and of course a hot swappable PCB. And now remember how I mentioned the base of the board is significantly chunkier than the top of the board, and that's because this board is mounted using springs. In the past, I've tried other spring-mounted boards. It isn't a very common thing to see, but the ones I've tried are the springs being mounted on the PCB directly. But the way they executed this, they did it pretty well. One of the main reasons why spring-mounted boards weren't very popular was because the PCB would end up too uneven. It would be too bouncy. It just felt very unstable. But this uses 6 pretty wide springs that hold onto the base of the board, which then houses the PCB very neatly. This gives it way more stability, especially for a Hall effect board, because accuracy is everything in a Hall effect keyboard. So the whole setup of using a spring-mounted board was something they had to figure out themselves, because I don't think there are other spring-mounted HE boards out there. And it really does provide for a very soft and comfortable typing experience. It's a world difference from a trimmer. And that's not all. They have this switch at the back of the board. It allows you to somewhat lock the springs. With the switch in, it will provide for a stiffer experience, and with the switch out, it'll let the springs do its thing. Now on to the actual HE HE part of the board. Let's start with the software. We have our standard HE features, custom actuation, rapid trigger, macro from single keys, last win, basically snap tap, and I love that this software actually gives descriptions of what each function does in the software itself for users who are unfamiliar with HE boards. They also do let you know which features aren't allowed in certain games, like snap tap isn't allowed in CS2. Now, if you play competitively, if you're really good at a certain game which needs a really insane keyboard, this does the job, 8000 Hz polling rate. Paired with the MCU that's installed, the latency stays under 0.2 milliseconds. And for the custom actuation point, they have it up to 0.01 millimeters. That's 1/10 the thickness of a human hair. I haven't seen a board that goes up to 2 decimal places, so this is crazy accurate. Now on to RT Match 2.0. As I mentioned, it's a hardware-driven system that dynamically adjusts the keyboard itself to the user's habits, keystrokes. It learns from you. And you might be wondering, what is this for? So I feel like many HE keyboard users can relate to this. There is not 100% accuracy when it comes to a HE keyboard. There are bound to be data errors in latency, in the rapid trigger, in the custom actuation, all because of human error, I would say. And sometimes the board themselves also do cause that slight error that humans can actually feel. So the more you use the board, the more the board will feel even better. And I didn't film this, but I let my brother use it for like a couple hours just playing CS2. And when I jumped on it with the exact same settings, I could feel the board different. It was adjusted to his behavior. And when I played on it, it felt like there was errors just because of his behavior. So this whole idea is really cool, but don't share your keyboard. There is so much more to this board, but that is what I know and what I wanted to share. So if you're interested, it will be linked down below. And for now, this board is definitely something I'm gonna try out. I never thought I would be impressed by a HE board again, but Drunkdeer just managed to do it. So good job to Drunkdeer. $199, crazy specs, 0.01 custom actuation is crazy. 8000 Hz polling rate, you don't need that, but they do provide that. And sorry if I sound stuffy, but I just recovered from a really bad flu, so maybe my voice sounds really sick. So aside from that, comment your thoughts on RT Match 2.0. I'm so curious as to what you guys think about this whole system that they have created. And aside from that, maybe just let me know what HE board you're using and would you upgrade to this just because of RT Match 2.0. But aside from that, like this video if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you enjoy my content, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.